Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic Ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.
Always a pleasure to have you on Diplomatic Ties on NTA International. On the heels of President of France visit Emmanuel Macron to Nigeria, we shall be focusing on Nigeria-France relations on the program today. Today, I will not be having a studio guest. Rather, it shall be a session of reports and analysis by career diplomats, giving insightful perspectives to the visit. First, let's take a listen to this report put together by Basi Itaikpan on Nigeria-France relations.
Nigeria-France relations have recorded unprecedented developments since 2014. Experts say relationship between the two countries center more on security. This is why the former France President François Hollande co-chaired the Security Summit in 2015 in Abuja. The two countries have since intensified ties with the signing of agreements on education, security and defense. Aside political ties, Nigeria and France share strong economic ties with 3.6 billion euro in bilateral trade in 2017. Nigeria remains France's leading partner in sub-Saharan Africa and the largest supplier of hydrocarbon. While the France 6.5 billion euro foreign direct investment stock in Nigeria is the second largest in Africa. President Emmanuel Macron's visit to Nigeria is seen as an attempt to forge closer ties. After 15 years as an intern at the French embassy in Abuja, Emmanuel Macron returns to Nigeria for a whistle-stop welcome with President Muhammadu Buhari and Nigerians.
Next is the signing of agreement for a letter of intent for the financing of the Urban Mobility Improvement Program initiated by the Lagos State government. Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, signed for the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the Chief Executive Officer, agents from Say Do Development, signed on behalf of France at the State House, Abuja. There was also the signing of a letter of intent to participate in the implementation of Nigeria's Blueprint Land Degradation Neutralization Project, initiated by the Ogun State Governor Ibukunle Amosun and General Manager of In Vivo Rachel Kobler, also at the State House, Abuja. That report is put together by Adamu Sambo.
Though very familiar with Nigeria, President Emmanuel Macron is visiting the country for the first time since coming to power, and the reception accorded him by President Muhammadu Buhari at the forecourt of the State House was warm and befitting. The two leaders thereafter retreated for one-on-one talks before joining their respective countries' delegations, where issues of common interest were thoroughly analyzed. Consequently, various agreements were signed between the two countries. One of them for the financing of Urban Mobility Improvement Program at $200 million is aimed at giving Lagosians quality transport system by developing, among others, 8 priority bus corridors connected to the mass transit network. The others are a $75 million credit facility agreement aimed at supporting Kano State to develop an effective and sustainable water supply service, as well as the implementation of Nigeria's blueprint on the land degradation project in Ogun State.
The project is to reforest 108,000 hectares of land, which has been deforested, and as a consequence is leading to climate change issues.
At a joint media briefing shortly after, President Muhammadu Buhari and the French leader Emmanuel Macron spoke of their resolve towards enhancing relations in the areas of security, economic development, as well as stabilization efforts, especially in the northeast, ravaged by insurgency.
I'm very grateful to the French president for his understanding and his commitment towards Nigeria and this region in particular. What France is doing, we all know, in trying to stabilize the region. Our discussions on one-to-one basis is around security, especially in the Sahel, the economy of the region, and how it can be successfully and politically integrated. For Nigeria, what I personally emphasize is the inter-basin transfer of Lake Chad. The third one, of course, is a question of resources, and our fighting of corruption is contributing to that.
We discussed with Mr. President about our common fight against Boko Haram and the current war. I reaffirmed the French commitment alongside with you and our willingness to contribute to your efforts in terms of intelligence, but as well specific contribution you would request. Our willingness to help the 4 countries working together against Boko Haram. We want as well to be more present in terms of stabilization in North and Northeast. That's why we decided to invest $75 million in stabilization in this region. We want to do more in economy. Your economy is so important and huge.
President Macron, who described Nigeria as a very important ally to France, commended ongoing efforts at securing the country as well as transforming the agricultural sector and promised necessary assistance. He gives reasons for his visit to the Africa Shrine in Lagos.
That's an iconic place for a lot of African people. And it was very important for me. It's first a personal pleasure. But that's a way as well to say, with a lot of humility, I recognize the importance of this culture. I recognize the place of this culture in the current environment, in this current world.
Of course, it's a very good idea. That's why the shrine survives. If it were not a good idea, people would have forgotten about it. People institutionalize it because they value it, and that keeps the young men busy.
The French president hopes to see Nigeria and his country develop more important relations in the areas of culture and sports so as to create more opportunities for the younger generation.
Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.
Highlighting perspectives to the visit is former Deputy Permanent Representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, Ambassador Usman Saki. He gave a good significance to that visit.
The visit is very important. We can see it at 2 levels, globally and bilaterally. Firstly, within the context of Europe-Africa relationship, France has a very dominant and, in fact, very progressive outlook in terms of European posture, and its relations with the world, particularly with Africa. So it also has a very strong link with many African countries. So France can leverage its influence in Europe and Africa to bring the 2 regions together to address common challenges like migration, immigration, the issue of terrorism, and also the issue of climate change. So at the bilateral level, France wishes to build today a stronger economic relation with Nigeria and de-emphasize the aspect of military involvement in terms of the regional politics. France has been characterized or known to concentrate more on regime protection or regime adjustments in its former colonies in Africa for the last 20 years or so. But now it wants to be more forthcoming towards economic construction, trade, commerce, and so forth. So I think the visit here significantly entails a shift in French perception of Africa and Nigeria. And you know, remember, France is now becoming increasingly with Germany the most dominant force in the European Union, and they want to now leverage that relationship to advance their economic interests, particularly in the context of their souring relationship with the United States. Actually, you know, France invests more in Nigeria than almost all the West African French countries, speaking countries combined. And they want to increase that, you know, investment, particularly taking into consideration the aggressive inroad of China into Africa. So they say, traditionally, we are the friends of this country. Peugeot, the car manufacturing plant, has expressed interest in coming back to Nigeria. But it all depends on how we restructure our economy, how we adjust in terms of protection of intellectual property, observing trade rules and regulations, and our relationship with the WTO in terms of investment or protection, and adherence to certain basic principles like trade liberalization, tax regimes, and so forth. If we adjust our system, the French are willing to come in the energy area, oil and gas, in construction. You mentioned Bouygues, you know, which was here in a strong way, and Dumes and other things, and also in services and technology. The President Macron is very passionate about starting up or startup business. Very recently, I think they allocated about 65 million euro to African startups, which translates to about 76 million US dollars. And they held the VivaTex, you know, exhibition of technology, where they invited even the president of Rwanda and other presidents to go to Paris. So they are very keen in engaging with us in the development of young people, young entrepreneurs in the technology area.
His Excellency Ambassador Akin Fayomi is next. He is Nigeria's former ambassador to France.
Warm bilateral relations that Nigeria has with France. Over the years, even before he got there, all the French presidents before him and the Nigerian presidents before our President Muhammadu Buhari, they've always had good chemistry together and good relations. The French are one of our strongest allies, and also we are also their number one trading partner in Sub-Saharan Africa, and the importance of the two countries to each other, complementing each other, cannot be overemphasized. Because the volume of trade grows by leaps and bounds every year. Currently, I think it hovers between 6 to 7 billion euros per annum. That's a gigantic trade volume. And that shows you that France takes Nigeria very serious, very, very serious in this part of Africa. And Nigeria also, we believe that we have a lot to do with France. Don't forget, we've had companies like Total, you know, petrol here in Nigeria for years. Bouygues Construction is also here. You know, Lafarge and the rest of them can go on and on. So we've had these wonderful economic relations with France over the decades. It's not new. Indeed, it's improving by the day. Of course, we supply them with petrol and all that, but we also get a lot from them. Still continuing with economic advantages, it also dovetails into the cultural relationship that we have. That's why the Alliance Française is one of the oldest French establishments in Nigeria. And one of the reasons why President Macron is actually coming is to come and commission a new building, a new renovated site of Alliance Française in Lagos. And that also means, obviously, that Nigerians want to learn French, which the security implication is very grand. You know, as you know, we've had this issue of Boko Haram, we've had Al-Qaeda in the Sahel, Akim, and all of them are there in Mali, in Niger, in Chad, and all that. President Hollande, that is the predecessor of Mr. Macron, actually hosted the first summit, security summit in Paris in 2013, December. I was there at that time. And then they now did one in Lagos, in Abuja in Nigeria in 2015. All in the process of intensifying security relationship, not just bilaterally Nigeria-France, but multilaterally. And that's why we have this multinational joint force that's in Maiduguri, which is composed of all the military apparatus of Cameroon, of Nigeria, of Niger, of Chad, you know, to nip terrorism in the bud. Not just Boko Haram, not just the ones that we are battling. You know, like I said, terrorism is a global, in quote, trade now, and Sub-Saharan Africa is also very open to that. You know, I mean, we had problems in Libya and all that, so and the porosity of borders, you know, makes it so easy for terrorists to move around. So the French are also very much involved in that security aspect, and we are grateful to them for that. They train some of our military men, you know, and we also send people over to France for training and you know, research and all that. So the security aspect is extremely important. I mean, that's the key, you know, issue that Mr. Macron will probably discuss with President Buhari. But at the same time, it goes beyond security. That was why we started with the economic aspect, the cultural aspect. But security is it's a key component of his reason for coming here.
Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.
After every visit by a state president to another country, there's always a fallout, and people will ask, what happened afterwards? Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister, Geoffrey Onyeama, was on hand to cap it all up on the benefits accruing from that visit.
We're looking at greater more French investments. Mr. President is of course leading a diversification process of our economy and pushing for greater foreign direct investment in the country. So he's obviously going to be able to let the French president know that Nigeria is very much ready for business, that notwithstanding a lot of the challenges that we're facing, that this is still a very good place, an attractive place for business. And in this context, there's going to be a MOU signed with French energy and environmental companies, and where it's an environmental project in Ogun State. The Ogun State government is going to be providing land, and it's over I think 1,000 hectares or so of land that will be made available. It's been degraded. The deforestation that has taken place has been quite enormous. It's about 7% now of what it used to be. So this project is looking at reforestation. We're also bringing industries and French know-how to bear in developing timber, pulp, and other agricultural products that will now in turn create about 150,000 jobs. So this is a real economic model that hopefully will now be replicated in other parts of our country. Well, what is new is that they are involved with 5 African countries in what they call the G5 Sahel, which is sort of centered around Mali and dealing with Al-Qaeda in the Sahel and also the other terrorist groups in the Sahel. So we're going to be or they are going to also be looking at the complementarity of the 2 security groupings. That's the G5 in the Sahel and of course the multinational joint task force that we have fighting Boko Haram, and how those 2 can work together, sharing intelligence and other support. And also very importantly, there's an issue of funding for the fight against terrorism. Now, the African countries and the French are supporting us in this, are looking for greater United Nations involvement financially in the process. And of course, this is a big challenge. Some of the big contributors to the UN are not so keen for the UN to be so involved financially. So we're looking also to the support of the French in getting the United Nations to help. So that's what they're bringing, that we have a strong ally in the demand for greater UN financial investment and involvement in tackling terrorism in the West African Sahel region. It's strengthen trade relations and also cultural relations, and it will be the first sort of more formal meeting between the two presidents. So we hope that it will also help to reinforce the French support also in the security area. So really security, trade and cultural ties, and also to engage with the youth in Nigeria, and also with some of our members of our creative industries, and meeting with Alliance Française to promote greater cultural cooperation. And we're hoping in his engagement with the creative sectors of our country that we will also identify areas for greater French-Nigerian cooperation, either in the film industry, the music industry, the literary sector. So that's also another aspect of his visit.
Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic Ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.
It's a wrap on Diplomatic Ties today. I believe you had it insightful. Today we never had a studio guest, but it was a session of insightful reports and perspectives to the takeaways from Emmanuel Macron's visit to Nigeria, talking about France's president. We hope and believe that in a matter of weeks, the dividends will start pouring in and out into Nigeria and out into France. Always be guest to Diplomatic Ties on NT International. Bye-bye.